for businesses that have been trading for a short period of time, sometimes the client doesn't know that they've got the option to be able to take that finance out under a business. So again, this is a speciality that I've recently gone through because I've just purchased a vehicle under my, business. Understanding which lenders are happy to look at clients that have had short-term employment under their business, basically, having a look at their previous PAYG earnings. There's a lot of lenders out there that have got an appetite for people, especially if they're working in the same profession, basically.
Definitely.
The last one that you touched on was HEX. So I think that's an interesting one, especially coming July 1 this year with the huge indexation coming through on HEX.
Yes, crazy.
It's going to be interesting how the banks will cater that as a commitment moving forward. Currently, they're obviously utilizing whatever's been used for this current financial year, but I'm assuming July 1st, payslips are going to be a lot lower with net annual income after those HEX payments come out, basically. So it'll be interesting how that gets impacted. So if clients have a capacity to be able to pay off their HEX, we always advise them to do so because it's one of those things that the banks definitely push people down quite hard with HEX, basically.
Yeah. And what's the way out? Is it better to just acquire a property, catch some growth and use it to consolidate all of these debt into a single mortgage that goes over 30 years or refi over 30 years? Is that a better strategy to basically outperform your own property portfolio in relation to the borrowing capacity side of things? Or, is there something better that you would suggest and, prefer?
I think it really depends on the client, right? So for a lot of people, the challenge for buying your first property is getting that deposit together, right? So if you've got HEX, if you've got personal loans and you've got credit cards, you're trying to obviously pay these things off, but you're also trying to get into the property market, right? In an ideal situation, a client paying off all their debts and coming to us with a 10% or 15% or 20% deposit would be the ideal scenario. But the challenge is that if you're paying rent, you're paying off all of these debts, by the time you've managed to do so and then get into the market, the property might have gone up by $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, depending on the market that you're in and how long it takes you to save. So it's a real balancing act. I think sitting down with the client, understanding their strategy, if they're paying an exorbitant amount of money in rent, which is what's happening in Victoria and New South Wales, it might be a better option for them to get into the market with a mortgage to be able to do so, rely on the equity growth, and then consolidate the debt 12 to 18 to 24 months down the track.
Definitely.
There's a lot of things changing with deposit requirements, first home loan deposit schemes, allowing people like their parents and other members to be able to borrow with them. So
yeah,
it's an interesting one. But I think it really depends on the individual situation, their ability to save, their ability to manage multiple liabilities at the same time as well.
And also the important thing here is that, a lot of, I would call out the age bracket, I would say like 22 to say 26, 27, 28-year-old who are trying to break into the property market for the first time, their natural thought process is, and, I would, blame this on a lot of property prophets and property gurus out there that, go out with a big bang, right? Buy an $800,000 or $1 million property or a $600,000 property. You can start off quite small when you're building up your property portfolio. You don't need to go for a $700,000 and $800,000 property, right? Naturally, people who are living in Sydney and Melbourne, they almost have this thinking that, I don't think that, you can buy a property less than 600, right? You can buy a property for even 300, 350, quite easily in today's time as well. So it's about making sure that, even if you have enough to enter into the market, the entering into the market is more important. And as soon as you have entered, then that gives you the opportunity to consolidate, catch more growth, and, be more creative around some of these, strategies. Of course, go back and speak to your broker, keep all of these, trusted advisors into one place. They all need to be on the same page working for you rather than, everyone has their own sort of, self-serving bias of, taking you into a different direction, right? And we'll do a separate podcast talking about why not every broker is the same. But I think that it's a very important sort of thinking that, the broker needs to do its work. The accountant needs to do its part. The property planner or the property strategist or the buyer's agent needs to do their part in order to, deliver a successful outcome for the client. Kids, this is the most talked about topic. I think every time, people come to me more in relation to strategies, the question always comes about, should I get married and get a property? Should I not get married and get a property? Should I have a kid and then get a property? Should I not have a kid and get a property first and then have a kid? What's the take on, some of these sort of, interesting dilemmas?
Definitely. Look, it's becoming more challenging for young people today. I really feel for them. As someone who bought their first property when I was single, on a moderate income at the time, maybe 70,000, give or take, and was able to borrow 8 to 9 times my annual income, it's a lot different these days. I mean, we're trending to 6 times annual income, even as low as 5. Obviously, once you add kids into the equation and maybe your partner's on maternity leave where you're supporting them, it could be as low as 3 times annual income. I think the best case scenario for a lot of clients to come through would be newly married or a couple that are going to be in that position to get married and looking to borrow as both on the, full-time annual incomes, basically. Once you chuck a child into the mix, especially the first child, a lot of clients lose between 75 to 100,000 off their borrowing capacity. And that's mainly because of the increased costs of the household the banks will determine. You obviously generally have one person working part-time at that period of time, or you have a huge amount of money that's going towards paying for daycare and a range of other things. And especially if you've got clients that are on higher incomes, they're obviously paying a higher amount for daycare, basically. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I think, look, if you can do it and do it right, the best time would be to do it before kids. But life gets in the way, right? You want to be able to grow a family. That's the whole point that people are trying to accumulate wealth for, right? It's not for themselves, but for that next generation. So balancing that, determining when the right time is to be able to have children or start to have children is when you've got a healthy investment portfolio, a healthy amount of debt that you're comfortable to manage on one income. Maybe even also having a cash buffer at that period of time to help support it is very vital.